Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back here with the GTOpen Championship, Chapter 3, Round 3 of this sensational season, and we're looking forward, certainly, to what will be a stellar race. Obviously, here at Hungaroring, a technical circuit, one of the tightest on the calendar. Broke ground in October of 1985, opening on March of 1986, and 14 turns await the drivers, 4.381 kilometers. That's 2.722 miles in length. Plenty of opportunity, certainly, for drivers to maximize their stints. Success penalties distributed right through the entirety of the grid, off the back of two sensational rounds that we had at Portimao, followed up by the endurance race at Spa-Francorchamps. We have got certainly a very high pressure cooker scenario in all three categories. Martin Kodrick, you can just see on your screen there, folks, taking pole position for this incoming round here at Hungaroring. He stands in good form with what could be a sensational return for Lamborghini. Let's see if they can deliver. My name is, of course, George Morgan, your commentator here this afternoon. Joining me is the one, the only, Ian Silvestrin. Not Ian Silvestrin, Chris Stevens, sorry.
Thanks for that, George. I'm glad I've been so memorable across the first two rounds of the season, but no, don't worry about it. Yes, absolutely, as you said, the 32 Benaldi that is on pole position, the first pole position for the Lamborghini Huracan Evo 2. And we could well be seeing a few firsts for some cars here, especially with three Ferrari 296s now on the field as well. And speaking of Lamborghinis, what about the Oregon Lamborghinis, which are looking in much finer form compared to the opening round in Portimao? And they were looking quite quick at Spa, but a bit of bad luck and some incidents not really going in their favour. But certainly Maximilian Paul there looking quite competitive, and the top of the pro runners in fourth place overall. And then this man, Marcos Seber, that is currently sitting second in the championship with his teammate Diego Mancheca. And then this car, the Almanar Racing team, that started the season fantastically with an opening round victory, starting in sixth place here. But of course, that is a part-time entry, although they are still carrying 15 seconds of that success penalty because they weren't at Spa.
No, absolutely right. A sensational, certainly, situation, because, of course, we've got plenty of cars that have got these success penalties, but could yet open the door for this team. Oregon, there is Dan Arrow, sat primed and ready to get things going, certainly here in round 3, visor down. He's only got one thing on his mind, and I can imagine that Maximilian Paul, his fellow Oregon driver, certainly as part of that conglomerate, is going to be looking for the same results. Nicolo Schiro as well, stepping up into grid position 8. Certainly the Italian be looking for certainly a phenomenal run, certainly from the get-go. Let's see if he can do it, Chris.
And that's one of two new Ferrari 296s that are out in force this weekend, both being fielded by Kessel Racing, the 38 there, as you mentioned, and then the number 11, which is the David Fuminelli and Frederic Jousset car. And they've been saying, obviously, it's quite a big learning curve for them, getting used to a whole new car. And they've been playing it a little safe on the setup, I think. So not quite extracting the maximum out of that car. And they've certainly had less experience in it, with only a test at Spa and at Monza compared to say the 26 Racing 1 Ferrari 296, which has been fielded for the full season so far. But look at that grid, George. Doesn't that look fantastic?
Absolutely stellar. We do love the drone cam here at this wonderful championship. Certainly a stellar running of talents here on the grid, and it stretches all the way down this home straight, as you can just see it cutting away out of turn 14. Also a fantastic crowd that have come to join us this weekend as well, looking to take in all of the GT3 action. And Chris, take us through the highlights.
Yeah, so the endurance round at Spa, this was certainly an action-packed 2 hours and 20 minutes. It was the East Talent Audi of Simon Riker that started on pole position, and Marcos Seber and Diego Mancheca as motorpark car getting into second place. But it was contact for the Oregon Lamborghini number 19 in the middle of the pack that certainly was less than optimum start. And then that car got into more dramas later on with this huge moment at the top of Radion, a 900-degree spin, catching some air, a very scary moment for Dan Arrow there. Now, we had quite a bit of a shake-up of the order with the pro runners having to come through a lot of the Pro-Am cars with a bit of a quirk behind the safety car. It ended with Charlie Fagg having to fend off Christopher Haase right down to the finish line. It was a photo finish, 67 thousandths of a second it was at the line, but Optimum taking the victory, and with it, the championship lead.
Yeah, absolutely, and just see what it's done to the results as well, and the championship certainly in procedure. Charlie Fagg, Samuel Dehaan, 50 points is currently what they share ahead of Marco Seibert and Diego Menchaca from Team Motorpark. Very, very tight at the top end overall, and we've also got other big fights happening in the other championships, including that of Pro-Am and Am2. Plenty more to come. As we get set to go racing for race one, and why not take you through the grid that certainly does show a stellar bit of competition up at the front end. Martin Kodrick, of course, taking them on their way, representing Pro-Am and Benaldi Motorsport, first pole position for them. Eddie Cheever lines up in second. Carol Bash in third, tried to get pole. He had every chance, just couldn't quite pull it off. He has got Maximilian Paul alongside him. Marco Seibert in fifth. Al-Faisal Al-Zubair looking to bid to become a race winner yet again in sixth. Dan Arrow in seventh. Nicolo Shiro in 8th place, with Axel Jeffries then in 9th. Simon Riker steps up in 10th place, representing the East Talent Audi that would take the Optimum Motorsport McLaren all the way at Spa. Further down then, we of course have Patrick Kolb alongside that of Samuel Dehaan, of course the previous winners in our last round. Reece Barr lines up in 13th, fastest car in practice, with Axel Blom there in 14th as well. Timo Rumpf-Kyle represents the fastest AM in terms of qualifying this morning. Giuseppe Cipriani alongside him in 16th place. Andrea Montemini lines up alongside Lewis Proctor, 17th for Proctor, Montemini 18th. Philip Barron and Barron Motorsport line up in 19th, with Nicola Marinangeli in 20th spot, Kiki Saknana in 21st, alongside Alessandro Cozzi in 22nd place. Jamie Stanley in 23rd, with Libor Milotta in 24th. Jean-Claude Sada, he'll line up in 25th place, alongside that of Jakob Schell in 26th. 27th place goes to Dexter Muller, representing SPS, alongside that of Samporn Zhao Javanil in 28th. 29th goes to Frederick Yusei, who spun during the qualifying procedure, and Kawanda is in 30th place as well for East Talent Audi. Not East Talent, sorry, Liquid Moly Team Engstler. And that is certainly the rest of your runners. But certainly up at the front end, obviously Kodrick leads the way. Cheever in second. Opportunities into turn one are plenty here, Chris. Where do you see this going as we take a look at the teams getting set and ready to go? It's a very busy paddock this weekend.
It certainly is. Great to see plenty of fans out in force, and the pit walk earlier was absolutely rammed, and certainly a lot of the spots in the grandstand are being filled as well. But everyone's been telling me, George, that this is an Audi circuit, and of course we have 2 Audis being fielded, with Carol Bash third for the Olymp team, and of course the Christopher Haase, Simon Riker East Talent Audi as well, which we can just see there, the number 23 car we've just gone past, because it suits this circuit rather well. Not so much the McLarens, such as our championship leader, who we've also just gone past there in the Red Zebra Optimum McLaren 720S Evo. But certainly the Lamborghini's looking a lot more competitive than they were earlier in the season. So I think it's going to be a real toss-up between those 2 manufacturers. And of course, we can never count out the Motorpark Mercedes and the Get Speed Run Almanar Racing car in 6th place as well. There's a lot of contenders, but of course we have got some success penalties to put into account as well. The heaviest, the most penalised car being the Almanar Racing, because they weren't at Spa, so they've got 2 rounds worth of success penalties to take still, 15 seconds.
Yeah, they do, and starting from 6th place, obviously they probably would have preferred to be on the front row, trying to negate that penalty as much as possible, but obviously that's a very difficult thing to do when you're in the position that you are, so we'll have to see what happens, obviously, when we get racing later on. Obviously, we're just waiting now for the cars to get underway. Obviously, we will have a formation lap procedure and then essentially get through on a running start, so they'll make their way towards the line in tandem and then lay the hammer down and the 10 down towards the and sort of send it heading through towards turn 1 now as the cars do get underway. And leading them off, Martin Kodrick, with Eddie Cheever alongside him in second, representing that AF Corsa lineup, the very strong AF Corsa lineup as well. Carol Bash in third. Spoke to him earlier on in the paddock, and got to talking to him about their car choice, because remember, they came to the season in the Mercedes-AMG GT3, and after conversing with him at length this afternoon, he laid it into me, and I kind of assumed that this might be the way of thinking as we made our way through the season. They felt better in the Audi. They preferred the Audi. They raced it last season, of course, became the Pro-Am champions off the back of running in that car, and it definitely was a jump into the unknown, moving into that Mercedes car. I think they felt that. They came away from the first 2 rounds, reassessed, and they wanted to hit up the Audi, certainly for the rest of the championship.
And we'll see how long that lasts, really, because, of course, the talk of the many paddocks around the world is that Audi is going to cease its customer support in not only GT3 racing, but also in TCR category as well at the end of this year, which may well see a number of Audis drop off many grids around the world, sadly. It's a shame, really, because they're clearly still very competitive, as Olympia and indeed East Talent are proving here this weekend. But for now, we've got the Audis running well, particularly on this circuit. And one to watch out for as well, I think, is going to be the Line Speed Porsche, the sole Porsche in this grid. It's a 991 rather than the new 992 that started competition this year. Been very, very unlucky so far, with a broken steering arm costing them a podium in Portimao, and then Ricard Leeds getting a puncture while leading the Spa Enduro in the latter stages of that race. So they've been very fast, but very unlucky. So we'll see what they can do from 11th on the grid today.
Do have to wonder as well whether that tyre issue might rear its ugly head again as well. This time, obviously, Hungaroring being very punishing on the tyres.
Absolutely.
Very technical circuit. Very easy to spin that rubber up, certainly around some of these bends, especially heading out to the final hairpin. Of course, we saw Frederick Usay go off there in qualifying earlier on this morning. So whether that becomes a factor, we'll have to wait and see. But plenty of I suppose, variances on hand, especially in the pit stop phase. How are those handicaps going to affect the grid? Let's find out together, folks at home. Hope you're all tuning in and enjoying this one. Martin Kodrick leading them through. Eddie Cheever alongside him in second. Carol Bash in behind with Maximilian Paul. Oregon looking to certainly upturn their fortunes. Great chance, considering that the Lamborghinis very much dominating this top end. Certainly they are finding that pace that they're looking for, as now you can see Kodrick there on the inside. They're all looking for track position, looking for that favourable clean air as the safety car now whips ahead. It's all on the front too. Kodrick and Cheever, they're going to take us up towards the line. The grandstand certainly lie in wait. The fans here that are bustling around this Hungaroring circuit as they make their way up towards the line, and they will put pedal to the metal. And it is go, 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 go. It's certainly a great start there from Martin Kodrick. Eddie Cheever might have been caught napping, because in comes Carol Bash instantly now. Darted to the outside, Maximilian Paul into turn one. Marcos Seabear as well down the inside. And there's the other Oregon car getting into the mix as well. Dan Arrow. Oh, Colbert Lietz. Colbert Lietz, when we were talking about the heartbreak at Spa-Francorchamps with the puncture, but they've just gone off the track. But it is Kodrick in front, Cheever in second, Carol Bash in third.
Yeah, the drama's still not over yet. We got more contact down at turn two, and that looks like one of the AF Corsa Ferraris getting spun round at the second corner as the Kessel 296 goes wide out of turn three as well. Very dramatic start, particularly for the Line Speed Porsche. Just got caught up in an incident there at turn one, but Carol Bash already making the moves. He's up to second place as we got side by side here between two of the top three in the championship through turn five. Dahan trying to get round the outside of one of the Mercedes.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Audi, sorry.
Absolutely. Carol Bash, I think, managed to actually plumb and get himself a great result off the back. And there it is. There is car number 11. Heartbreak already for Frederick Usay, who unfortunately came unstuck during qualifying. It's happened again, this time in race conditions, but it hasn't certainly confounded Kodrick. He as well clear now with Bash in hot pursuit in behind now as well. Maximilian Paul, Oregon now in the podium places, but we've still got an awful long way to go. 70 minutes of racing lie in wait for the drivers. There further back then you can see Alphys Lars Hubert, 5th place as well, with Dan Arrow currently in the midst of a an Oregon, should we say, hunting down the back end as well. We have some side-by-side action as well further down. That, of course, being the number 51 car trying to find its way through. That's Nicola Marinangeli, who is trying to chase on him. And so we can now see the cars make their way down the straight to once again commence yet another lap here at Hungaroring. There you can see further back as well, Marcos Seabear trying to chase after Dan Arrow, who is certainly trying to send it. He's attached the bowstring. He's going for it. He knows exactly what he wants here, Dan Arrow. And it's a safety car. A safety car already here in the start of the race. And there's the reason why.
Yeah, because the 296 Kessel Ferrari is stranded in the middle of the road, and the driver is having to take very careful avoiding action, so they'll probably crawl around this part of the track. So yellow flags very much out in force at turn 2, and what a shame, because we wanted to see the 296 in action. It's only one of 3 cars that are running that new Ferrari for this year. Here's a replay of the start, and it was Carol Bash getting tucked right up behind the pole-sitting Benaldi Lamborghini to try and get up the inside of Chiva here. And I think Chiva has a bit of a dandere on the brakes here. He's going, oh, I'm not going to have it, and he very nearly made contact there. Let's see if we can see what happened with the Porsche. It was contact with the SPS Mercedes of Reese Barr, and not for the first time this season. That car's been caught up in the wars. He was tagged by Maximilian Paul last time out. That was with Michael Patamba at the wheel in the opening stint of the Spa Enduro. Here it is on board with Kolb. He's just going to get a whack here, and round he goes. And well, we were talking about the longevity of the tyres on that car, and that won't have done them any favours.
No, I mean, we talk about punches. I think that'll be at the very back of their mind now. But after that, I mean, how about this for a collision? Obviously, they all came together. I think looking further down, that is Frederick Yuse, I think, in the mix of all that.
Yuse on the left there, and I think it's the 25 that gets caught up with one of the other. I mean, there's about 3 separate incidents going down there at turn 2, because it's the sister Benaldi car gets caught up with Yuse, and then there were 2 separate incidents further in front of them.
Well, Nicolo Shiro and Nicolo Rossi were the actual reasons why the safety car was obviously deployed, because they were stopped at turn 2. The car is still stopped at turn 2. So, incidentally, that car belonging to them has unfortunately, sorry, should I say David Fuminelli and Frederick Yuse being the one that's unstuck. They, of course, now being the causation of that safety car, hence why we have these conditions here. Naturally, I met David Fuminelli in the paddock. He seemed very keen to race, looking forward to it. He might not yet get a chance. Obviously, if the car now doesn't get itself back into the garage, they're very likely going to have some repair work to be done. Don't forget, we have another race tomorrow. They're probably going to be thinking more about that at this point, Chris.
Yeah, I think, well, it's been cleared now, so whether it's actually joined the back of the train or is heading towards the back of the train, we'll see. But it didn't look overly optimistic for that car, because if it's stalled, then I'm sure it will be able to get it going again. But we can't see it in the queue at the moment.
No, not at all. But we'll sit and lie in wait. We will get an update. Obviously, the car has moved. Obviously, we just saw pictures of turn 2 heading in towards turn 3, and it has indeed disappeared. So whether it does form up on the tail end of this conglomerate, we will, of course, find out. But still, all the cars still in order. Bash still in second. Paul in behind as well. Eddie Chiva down to 4th. Didn't have the best of starts, Chris.
No, it was sort of on the wrong line, really, into turn 1. Obviously, he was making a move for the lead, essentially, when he was braking for the first corner, but lost out, really, to both Bash and Maximilian Paul. Alfaz Al-Zubair's moved up a spot as well into 5th place, and then Dan Arrow and Marcos Seabear, Axel Jeffries, Nicolas Schurrer and Sam DeHaan. That is the top 10 at the moment, with Simon Riker just behind them. So that is 1st and 3rd in the championship at the moment, lying 10th and 11th. Just ahead of the AM class leader, which is the motorpower car of Timo Rumpfkeil, the 65. Safety car in this lap, so we're going to get going again shortly.
Yeah, the yellow flags will be put away. You can just see the gap there between the safety car and the front runners just starting to peel away. And now slowing them up is Martin Kodrick, getting ready for the start, or the restart, should we say now, as we enter 63 minutes and 50 seconds to go. There you can see there the hairpin that, of course, you say would come unstuck at during qualifying. It's now a different challenge on their hands now as they now peel on through. You can just see them all in tandem, equilateral gaps in places, as we now look to get restarted again. Now, who's going to get the better jump? Carol Bash will obviously be licking his lips at the prospects of this, as will Maximilian Paul, who will be glad that that gap is now starting to come back in, and now it's pedal to the metal for the second time in this race the Hungaroring now, and Martin Kodrick still leads the way, bashing behind as well. There's some movements to the back. That's Giuseppe Cipriani running up to the inside as well, covering off paddock side, pit lane side, as it now runs side by side. It looks like a Greystone McLaren there, getting into the mix. It certainly does so, moves its way up the order, and that belonging to Lewis Proctor, sending him further up this timing screen. He's now in 14th.
Yeah, great stuff there into turn one. Oh, the Kessel 296 Ferrari running very wide there into turn two. Is he going to lose out of place here as Bash has gone off the circuit? No doubt trying to make a move for the lead here as they run up the hill towards turn four. But Karol Bash has got Martin Kodrick right in his eyesight, and he's not going to let that Benaldi car get away. Remember, the Audi seems to be performing very well here. That's why everyone's been telling us in the paddock this morning that this circuit suits that Audi very well indeed. But we know how well the Lamborghinis have been running as we got the Oregon car getting a bit of side-by-side with the Motor Park cars. Michael Seabury, will he lose out there to Axel Jeffries on the inside into turn number 8? No, he did not. So he was able to fend off the Motor Park car there, just about. And then you see a bit of a gap back to the Nicolas Giro car that went very wide into turn 2. But look how close it is for the lead, Josh. Karol Bash is right in the wheel tracks of Martin Kodrick for the lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And here is
another spin.
Wow, another spin. That belonging to car number 25.
Now, I think that's the car that got caught up at turn 2, Alessandro Cosi there. And I almost wonder if it's got some damage from that collision. But look, Bash was trying to go around the outside of turn 3, the fast right-hander there. Very optimistic indeed. Now, this might be a bit of a better chance for him here as we approach 60 minutes left on the clock. But we see Kodrick got a very good exit out of that last corner. No way through for the Audi to come through as the Motor Park car gets down the inside here of Dan Arrow into turn 1. But Arrow's going to come back up the inside. A lovely little up and under there. And Marcos Seabear's got to get inventive now to try and pass that Oregon Lamborghini, who's having a look up the inside into turn 2. But no way through, and Axel Jeffries waiting in the wings there to see if he can pick up any pieces as well.
Fantastic defense there from Dan Arrow, trying to keep Marcos Seabear away. He's probing him time and time again, looking for every avenue possible to make that move. I was going to usher earlier on and suggest that obviously with that previous move he made coming out of the chicane on the previous lap, he had to very quickly react to Axel Jeffries in behind. It was very fast paced, but did extremely well to maintain the position just to cover off the possible loss. Axel Jeffries certainly no one to be trifled with, as now we're seeing it's coming together. That's Dexter Muller. Dexter Muller, and that without any shadow of a doubt is the other Ferrari going off towards the back as well.
It's the Racing 1 Ferrari, the 488 that they've got, and yeah, a little ambitious there from Dexter, unfortunately.
Yeah, getting tied up there at turn 1. Very easy to do. We've seen it quite a few times, and I'm sure he'll be a little disappointed with that. But to tell you what, anything can happen here at Hungaroring. We've already had a safety car. Doesn't mean to say that we might not get another one. Sit tight, folks. I tell you what, the story will certainly unravel as time goes on.
Well, of course, that safety car, if you've got the AM runner in the Pro-Am teams at the moment, that's great news for them because they've been able to run a bit of their time on the clock under the safety car and not lose as much time to the cars that have got their pros in, which are going to pull away. Although that impact, I think, is going to be minimum because we weren't under safety car for very long at all.
Yeah, absolutely right indeed. And again, everything impacts the eventual result in this race. Simon Riker ahead of Sam Dahan now, 10th place. Sam Dahan now down to 11th. The gap now starting to come into fruition between those two as well, but do not count out Dahan. He's still a very capable driver. Of course, though, they will have to suffer a success penalty as a result of their very, very successful result at Spa last time out, as we take a look at the likes of Thibaut Rumpf-Kyle, who has also represented the Motor Park team. They, of course, having a stellar running in the AM Championship this season and very much showing the, well, all the vibes of competitiveness at this stage. Remember, Motor Park coming in with a brand new GT3 squad that have essentially decided to take, or certainly take the bull by the horns here in the International GTOpen Championship, and they've got a contender in the AM title, but also in the Pro title as well.
Yeah, I mean, what a brilliant first year so far for Motor Park in the GT3 contingents. Of course, you will know that team name very well from the junior single-seater world, which they have dominated at times, various different series, and now this is their first year with a proper GT3 effort, and it's going very well, not just represented in Pro, but also in AM, as you mentioned. We're on board with our championship leaders, Sam de Haan here at the wheel of the 69 Optimum Motorsport McLaren 720S Evo. And they were telling me that this track not really working so well for their car, and that's why we're seeing, rather unusually, the championship leader down in 11th place at the moment behind Simon Riker, who is third in the championship as well. And that car will be handed over to Christopher Haase in the second half of this race, whereas Charlie Fagg will get on board the car we were just riding on board with.
So they'll make their way into turn one again. And you see the East Talent Audi as well in behind there. That's, of course, the Kessel blue car that's up there. Certainly not a familiar colour you'd expect from Kessel, but nice livery nonetheless, as we're now seeing once again the Greystoners looking to take helm as they make their way out of turn two in towards turn three very shortly. There you can see them tied together. There's the East Talent there, as well as the Red Zebra belonging to that of the Optimum, now running a little wide there as well, the Greystone. But there's your race leader. It's Martin Kodrick, Bash in second. There, of course, Maximilian Paul with Eddie Cheever in hot pursuit. Al Zubair as well in the mix, and Dan Arrow then with a gap trying to keep Seabear at bay, and he's done well to continue that fact as well. He's done a sensational job, Dan Arrow, of keeping Seabear behind.
Yeah, and of course, the last time he was in that car at Spa, he was spinning around at the top of Radion, and I can't imagine it would be a relatively easy thing to get back in the car after that, but he's a professional, and no fear for him, I'm sure. Unlike, well, you or I, George, I probably wouldn't get back in that thing for quite a while. But Maximilian Paul here coming under big pressure now from Eddie Cheever the third as they come into the final sector now. The Lamborghini being hounded by the AF Corsa Ferrari, and Maximilian Paul still relatively early in his international racing career, having had most of his experience being in the ADAC GT Masters Championship for the last 3 years, with a smattering of DTM openings as well. Very much, a local driver to Germany most of the time, but made his international debut at Daytona last year, and coming to a lot of tracks for the first time, as indeed is the other Aragon Lamborghini driver of Pietro Perolini, sorry, who's never raced here before. Said he had 8 laps in practice, and now here's his teammate now getting very close here with the Motor Park car, and a bit of wheel rubbing there as they come through turns 2 and 3. Now we've seen Dan Arrow already get creative with his defense, getting past and then getting back ahead of the car of Marcos Seabear, and he's getting his elbows out again. But yes, Dan Arrow's teammate there, who will be in the car later, only had 8 laps of running so far because that car didn't run in FP2 with a mechanical issue.
Yeah, no, absolutely right indeed. Very close between the pair. Obviously, again, Seabear asking the questions. Dan Arrow answering every single one of them. Axel Jeffries, though, waiting in behind. Well, obviously, won't want to stand in behind these two. Remember, he is part of the Pro-Am contingent. He's going to be swapping out later on. And obviously, we'll need to make as many places as possible. So keep your eyes peeled on that man, Axel Jeffries. As they now make their way out now, Seabear will have to be very wary to make the right moves further back. You see the Kessel Racing car in behind as well. Simon Riker chasing after Nicolo Shiro at this point as well. Sam de Haan currently in 11th, also trying to get himself back into fruition after losing that place to Simon Riker earlier on. And then you've got the AM leader, Timo Rumpfkeil, who is having a great race again here for Motor Park. They come through the final corner here now at turn 14. Bidding yet again to start yet another lap. Kodrick still out in front, Bash in second. Paul there with a gap as well. Just looking at it, the gap has gone outwards. Kodrick has made ground. Now this is Sam de Haan, and this was the move between him and Simon Riker, I believe, coming together. And of course, remember, it was Sam de Haan who was actually outdone by Riker on that occasion. You can just see that inside line will favour that of Simon Riker, and you'll get back on the power. But rubbing shoulders heading through turn 13.
Yeah, pushing him out wide a little bit there. Aggressive stuff from Simon Riker, passing the championship leader there. So we'll see how that battle continues. So you see Riker there has got himself straight onto the back of Nicolo Shiro in that Kessel, the silver and blue Kessel Ferrari 296. As this battle for the last spot on the podium at the moment continues. No, sorry, that was the other Aragon Lamborghini. I have learned how to separate them because this number 19's got the green trim on the front of them. This is the battle for 6th place.
Yeah, it's getting close once again. Seabear has literally been hovering all over that rear wing on that Oregon Lamborghini now for quite some time. And of course, Oregon will have fond memories of last season. Obviously looking to try and chase and try and garner a better result this season. They didn't have the best of starts. Obviously Portimao left a little bit of a sour taste, you can imagine, not to mention round 2, where of course we saw the likes of Dan Arrow spinning at the top of Eau Rouge and Raidillon. But there of course now lies an opportunity here for Oregon now as Martin Kodrick settles the fastest lap of the race with a 1:45, and will certainly look to prosaically continue 1:45.367, the fastest time on the board at this stage. As now we see them make their way down the stretch now. There you can see Maximilian Paul there in third, still tracking at the front end. So there's Charlie Fagg and Sam Dahan now chasing after that East Talent Audi. Fond memories they'll have from Spa, no doubt, when they came together right at the very end.
Yes, of course it was the other two drivers in that car at the time, but maybe we'll see them again, as once again Dan Arrow and Marcos Seabear putting on a good display at turn 1. Arrow having to fight to keep the Lamborghini ahead of the Mercedes there, and into turn 2, no attack from Seabear that time. This is where they were banging wheels a couple of laps ago. But still, Dan Arrow, the young Dutch driver, able to repel the advances of Marcos Seabear, who is very much one of the championship contenders.
Yeah, is indeed. Karel Bash actually currently setting the fastest first sector as well, so he's started to put the squeeze now on Kodrick up the front end. He's got a 1.3 second gap to rein in, but Dan Arrow with another fantastic display in that first sector to marshal off the approach from Marcos Seabear at this point, running very wide, catching the grass on the outset as well as they venture through sector 2. Sector 3 coming up very shortly as well. A warning going to car number 8 as well for track limits. That's Giuseppe Cipriani around turn 4 and 17. As now we're seeing the cars now make their way through this next strike. 51 minutes and 20 still to go. And again, Dan Arrow using all the circuit and more to try and keep Seabear behind.
Yeah, that's how low they're running the car. We've got a bit of a spark there from the floor of the car as it went over those sort of razor teeth curbs they run on the exit of some of those corners. As once again, we've got the East Talent Audi getting very close here with the Optimum Motorsport McLaren, but they're both now closing in on the Shiro-driven Kessel Ferrari for 9th place. And I'm sure Sam Dahan here will fancy following Riker if he does manage to make a move down into turn 1. It's a long old run down to the first corner, really the only high-speed bit of track on this circuit, but nothing happening into turn 1 on this particular occasion. I must say, it's closing up quite a lot between the top 5. Martin Kodrick's kind of checking out at the front, but only 4.5 seconds covers the top 5 as we're now approaching 20 minutes into this 70-minute race. Of course, tomorrow's race slightly shorter. It's the 60-minute race, this one being 70. And we will have the driver change open in around 10 minutes' time as well. Now, incident involving cars 88 and 91, that's the AF Corsa Ferrari and the Team Baron car under investigation for an incident at turn 2. That I imagine that would have been at the start.
Yeah, they would have come together certainly very, very close, and they're going to have a further look at it. Obviously, we'll bring you news as soon as we get word from our stewards. And naturally now, as we keep our eyes peeled on this very eye-catching scrap between that of Marcos Seabear and Dan Arrow that has been brewing steadily over the last quite a few laps now. Obviously, Dan Arrow doing his utmost to try and keep Seabear at bay. Al Zubair has managed to check out at 4.8 seconds ahead of them, so there's quite a bit of clean air separating that of Dan Arrow and Faisal Al Zubair in 5th as well. Seabear currently down in 7th with 4.10 separating him and P6's Dan Arrow, but I'm sure that'll be back in soon. But also keep your eyes peeled on Axel Jeffries, who is just in behind too, as we're now seeing certainly that of Karel Bash. There is the other Oregon car belonging to that of Maximilian Paul. Take a look as well at Eddie Cheever with Al Zubair as well in behind, as now Marcos Seabear has another look. He comes out of the slipstream, has a nose down the inside, but no chance to make a move. The gap just too much.
I mean, this is really impressive stuff from Dan Arrow, the 22-year-old from Amsterdam, only in his 3rd year of car racing. He started out in MX-5s back in the Netherlands back in 2021. Did a bit of GT Cup Open that year as well, so no stranger to this paddock, with a bit of Italian GT last year as well. But this is his first sort of full attack season in GT3 machinery and doing a very impressive job for the Oregon team, as we were just on board with the Line Speed Porsche, which is on the recovery after being spun round at the first corner on the opening lap.
Yeah, had a very tricky start indeed. Actually ventured out onto the grass, etc. too, so they'll be looking to try and recover as best they can. It's a tricky business here. They've got Jean-Claude Sada in front of them right now. Patrick Kolb obviously trying to do his best to get as close as he can in order to try and muscle in that overtake. There's Martin Kodrick, though, and he's actually managed to grow that advantage now, nearly 2 seconds. The gap now between him and Karel Bash. Maximilian Paul, in fact, might be looking to get a little closer to that of Karel Bash's Audi. Further back there, you can see Al-Faisal Al-Zubair, who is giving Eddie Cheever a little bit of a headache now and has a look down the inside as well. Now, this is a thrilling encounter now. Cheever, of course, who started on the front row, now has Al-Faisal Al-Zubair, the first winner this season when we went racing at Portimao in race 1, now fancies his chances at a potential overtake despite the success penalty that'll accrue during the driver change window. They make their way down the straight yet again. Still, it's Bash there with, well, monitoring a gap between him and Paul. There is Al-Faisal Al-Zubair. A look down the inside, not quite. He did have a little nose, a little flick of that right-hand side of that Mercedes. They now whip through turn 1, but still not enough to tackle that of Eddie Cheever just yet.
Yeah, so Maximilian Paul's completely checked out of that battle. They were running pretty close together, those 3 cars, or maybe these 2 have dropped off because they've been squabbling a little bit, but Eddie Cheever's got a mirror full of Mercedes at the moment. The Almanar racing car run by Get Speed, and a part-time entry. They're only doing 3 rounds. This is the second of them, and we saw them out of the opening round in Portimao, looking very, very good. It was a first and a second for them that weekend, which is why they've acquired the 15 seconds of success penalty they'll take, because they weren't at Spa either, so they haven't served it there. And no doubt that car with Fabian Schiller, who will be at the wheel in the second half of this race, the newly appointed Mercedes AMG factory driver, will have a little bit of work to do when he gets in the car.
Yeah, he certainly will do. Obviously, Fabian Schiller taking over from that of Al-Faisal Al-Zubair. Eddie Cheever, of course, are going to try and do his utmost for his team as well, representing that Pro-Am contingent. There you can see further back as well, Marcos Seibert and Dan Arrow coming into picture as well. These 2 have also been hustling at this point, at this very, very high-octane, certainly scrap that we have in the top 10. It has been absolutely thrilling. Currently, the Lamborghini with the upper hand on this occasion over that of the Mercedes. Of course, Al-Zubair looking to try and make it a Mercedes superiority battle between that of him and the Ferrari belonging to that of Eddie Cheever as they now head out of the final corner now. And what a picturesque view you can have here of these 2 cars going at it, certainly gunning it down through towards turn 1. There is, of course, Al-Faisal Al-Zubair chasing after that of Eddie Cheever, who currently holds that position. And again, Seibert has another look down the inside as well, potentially unsettling that of Dan Arrow, who currently holds on to P6, trying to open up that door. He's trying to force an entry, trying to make a mistake, but he has done so well to prevent that from time, as now we see that we have got them side by side as they now cut through the inside out of turn 2. Seibert having a look every which way but one, as now we see them come out of turn 3, but still Seibert unable to ask the major questions.
Something's happened to Karel Bash on that last lap. He was 6 seconds slower and he's fallen down to 5th place. So Maximilian Paul takes over 2nd place ahead of Eddie Cheever, who's now on the rostrum, but he's just ahead of this battle. So what on earth happened to Karel Bash on that last lap?
Incredible. He has dropped down a considerable number of places. Remember, he was 2nd, folks. He was trying to gun after Kodrick. He's down into 5th. He's lost 3 places. Oh, incredible scenes here as Dan Arrow now drops it into the grass. Seibert smells an opportunity, as does maybe Axel Jeffries. They come together again, heading through the final sectors still, and just look at them nose to tail. You can't separate them.
Yeah, so Dan Arrow can't overdrive the car now. He's got dirt on his tyres. You saw he had to take it so carefully through turns 8 and 9, practically holding up the Mercedes behind him. Seibert having to jam on the anchors so he didn't run into the back of the Oregon Lamborghini, but Arrow survived another attack for now.
Yeah, he certainly has survived, and he has done a very good job at surviving, certainly in the meantime. But just look at it, though. They are still ironclad together. There you can see them further back as well. Axel Jeffries, who's literally been watching on now. This is the chicane. Not necessarily the moment where Karel Bash became unstuck, but there's Dan Arrow licking the grass, heading out of that chicane indeed. Now, coming out of turn 8 in towards turn 9, got very contentious, certainly between the 2 yet again, as Seibert once again is right on that rear wing of the Oregon Lamborghini. But Dan Arrow sterling bit of defence, a superb drive so far on his stint that's holding on to this position currently in P6.
Yeah, no pressure for Pietro Perolini there when he gets in the car, because Dan Arrow's doing a superb job, as you mentioned. Is that battle again with the 38 Kessel car. Nicolo Schurrer still ahead of Simon Riker in the East Talent Audi in 9th place. Sam de Haan's dropped back from that fight a little bit, but yeah, definitely this fight for 6th, the all-enthralling fight for 6th at the moment.
Yeah, very enthralling indeed. Kodrick currently out in front now, and in fact managed to increase the gap now to 4.2, with Bash dropping down through the field. So Maximilian Paul, despite being second, has a little gap to try and tailor inwards. Now you can see a little tidier out of the chicane this time from Dan Arrow, so no such concerns with the grass. As you can see, the gap is a little larger. In fact, I'd argue that Axel Jeffries is closer to Marcos Sibert than Sibert is to Dan Arrow, as they now hurtle through this next left. Final sector still to come as they whip through it now. Right-hander, and then of course they've got another right to take before they've got the hairpin. And there you see Karel Bash, who looks like he's recovered, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, back up to speed. I mean, it must have been some sort of mistake on that particular lap. He lost 6 seconds to the race leader and dropped 3 places in doing so as well. The car was in 2nd place, the car that we thought would have been on pole position after he set all the sectors but never really strung the lap together because of traffic, and he said a little bit of overdriving as well. Didn't seem too upset about it, because of course the race is where the big differences are made. Now look at this is the 51 and change on, so Marin Angeli decided to come in at the earliest opportunity, as is Sam de Haan. So he'll come in and hand over the car to Charlie Fagg, while of course serving a 10-second success penalty as well.
Yeah, coming in, and there you can see them hard at work now, changing the rubber on the car now. Driver change imminent. Sam de Haan out the car, Charlie Fagg in. Here comes the Liquid Moly, Tim Enks the car. Of course, they themselves, a new lineup, to say the least. Obviously, Luca Enksler is still in the car, but he is now going to take over in this instant as they all come barreling on in, and they'll soon make that change. Coanda stepping out, in comes Enksler. They don't have a penalty to face. Obviously, they've only got the 70-second, which is the standard limit that you've got to at least hold while you're making this change in the stop, and also getting those tyres swapped over as well. More changes coming in. There is, of course, Conrad Grumwald, Jean-Claude Sada stepping out, so Grumwald will now take the helm as now more and more cars come in. There is the other Benoldi Lamborghini as well. Jean Jarvinil is going to be stepping out. There is Dexter Muller, who is going to be replaced by Yannick Mettler when that changeover continues. But there you can see Alvarez Zubert out on track, still prosaically chasing after Eddie Cheever. No swap there yet, and out comes Charlie Fagg.
Yep, so Charlie Fagg gonna take to the track now, and of course he's already had a very dramatic season, and those two have of course announced they're tackling the Spa 24-hour together in a couple of weeks' time, as in comes the 63 Pierre-Louis Chauvet, about to take over from Maximilian Paul, and that car is unrestricted in terms of its success penalty, so just the standard minimum pit stop time, and we have the Almanar racing car in as well, so the Mercedes-AMG factory driver Fabian Schiller about to get on board, and no doubt he will be on a charge to get that car further up the order. This is really going to change the dynamic of the second half of this race. Christopher Haase, the Audi Works driver, getting on board the East Talent Audi there, taking over from Simon Riker. So that's going to be interesting to see where they come out relative to the Optima McLaren, because they've done their driver change already, and they were pretty close together on track for a position in the top 10 overall. And of course, if you're these Pro-Am runners and you've got the Pro in at the moment, you're going to run the clock on this and come in at the last possible second. Yeah, you are. You want to make the most of the time sitting in this driver change window. Try and maximise your laps. If you want a fastest lap, now's the time to grasp it, because you want to try and escalate any advantage you can grasp. Kodrick slides on track, Cheever and Bash as expected. Of course, Bash slightly hampered, obviously, in fact, majorly hampered after that issue that he would have sustained earlier on that dropped him down the field. He's now up into the top 3 again, obviously subject to the driver change window, as we can now see that car number 51 making its way around the circuit as well. And the Dexter Muller, Yannick Mettler Mercedes got a 5-second time penalty for causing that collision we saw down at turn 1 earlier. And no further action on the investigation between Frederick Jousset and the 33 Benaldi car. And again, that was at the start of the race as well, turn 2, so no action there.
Yeah, Street Arts, Aston Martin making its way into the pits as well, 007. Shaken but not stirred, as they now make the changeover now here during the pit window. And they'll step up and make the necessary. Certainly they're looking for a big weekend themselves now, as we've got a little bit of a tussle between the Lamborghini, Benaldi Lamborghini, and that of Martin Kodrick. Now this is of course him essentially lapping at this point as they come together, and now making his way through the next right-hander. Still hasn't yet sustained a pit stop, so obviously all this is all fine and well, but it's all undone as soon as you come into the pits to make that driver change.
Yeah, and he leads Cheever now by 5.2 seconds. And of course, the battle between Kodrick, Cheever, and Bash, that's all for position in class. They're all Pro-Am runners. And so we'll expect in the second half of this race for the pro cars to start making their way through into the higher overall positions.
Yeah, there is, of course, the cars making their way through. Obviously, we spoke about the line speed Porsche, obviously suffering that puncture last time at Spa, obviously suffering different issues this time. Obviously, that venture onto the grass, as we alluded to, not helpful at all. Hopefully, they won't suffer the same issue yet again. But obviously, we've spoken about the tyres and how they do come under convincing pressure here around this very technical circuit that certainly does try you beyond every measure. Despite it being a circuit you very rarely get the amount of overtakes. We've seen plenty of opportunities for some today. Certainly if you've seen the battles ongoing between that of the likes of Marcos Seibert when he's been on full attack. Of course, he himself has also dished out a wonderful performance, but Dan Arrow, who has kept him at bay, has done an absolutely stellar job of pulling that off as we have more activity down in the pit lane too.
Fabian Schiller is already lighting up the timing screen here. Fastest second and third sectors on his outlap, so he's wasting no time at all in chasing after Diego Mancheca. They're currently 17th and 18th, but that will play out for a spot on the podium, and that gap is currently 5 seconds. But of course, he's got Christopher Haase 4 seconds behind him as well. So this could get tight very quickly.
Certainly could do. Kodrick there, you can see on your screen, just getting himself prepped and ready. Obviously, we've still got the change window on, but we've got 8 minutes until it ends. And he's going to make the very most of this, to say the least. But as you alluded to, obviously, with the likes of having that Get Speed Almanar racing car starting to nail in the lap times, we know how talented Fabian Schiller is. He displayed it at Portimao when, of course, the last came to the GTOpen Championship, taking the first win of this season and capping off a wonderful display. They, of course, having to deal with a 15-second success penalty, which, of course, is going to put them on the back foot a little bit. But having a driver such as Fabian Schiller that can marshal in these times, I can tell you this, folks, he's gone fastest again in that second sector. He is trying to give absolutely everything to this performance and boost his team, boost his car higher up this order. Could he be in proximity for a potential race winner? I mean, I'm sure he'd appreciate a safety car in some ways at this point, Chris.
Yeah, I'm sure he would. Of course, he's got quite a few contenders ahead of him, really, in terms of the overall. I've just seen who's the sort of top runner of the drivers who have come in. I think it's Pierre-Louis Chauvet in the 63 Oregon car. Now, that, of course, didn't have any success penalties to take. So depending on how quickly Kodrick, Cheever, and Bash continue to lap the circuit, the Oregon car could well find itself in the net lead of the race, but he's only got 2 seconds over Diego Mancheca. So we'll just keep an eye on the cars that are currently 13th and 14th, because the top 12 are yet to come in and do their mandatory stop.
Schiller going fastest again. He's taking the fastest first sector as well. He is absolutely racing like a man possessed. He's trying to gain every little bit of delta. He is faster in that first sector by around 0.4 of a second to that of Pierre-Louis Chauvet, who currently sits in 13th place. So he is gaining time after time, which is absolutely sensational, as we now see more cars coming in. Now, this is the Mirage Motorsport car. Libor Milotta stepping into the pits. Obviously, a solo entry to this race weekend, so he's doing the entire stint. A lot of pressure for him, but great to have Mirage Motorsport here, who certainly have not backed away from a fight, in this being essentially their home race.
Yes, very much so. And they've been quite busy preparing that car. But great to have them here, and great to see them out on track. Mixing it up with some much bigger teams, I think it's safe to say, when you look at the facilities that have been brought to the racetrack.
Yeah, definitely a challenge, given the quality of the cars we have here in the International GT Open. We certainly have plenty of the world's best, the world's greats that essentially going at it to decide who wins not only this race win as such, but also the entire championship as a whole, as we now see obviously the Lion Speed GP make its way down through towards turn 1 as well. There is the Team Exler making its way round the next lap. Now pit stop for 63 under investigation, Chris, and that's Pierre-Louis Chauvert's car.
Yes, that is the car that we believe holds the net lead of the race when the pit stops shake out. So that is very much one to look out for. So we'll keep an eye on the timing screen there to see if we get any updates on that. But that could be absolutely critical in deciding the outcome of this race with 32 minutes left on the clock. Still, we are yet to see the top 10 cars come into the pits, including this man, the race leader.
Yeah, Martin Kodrick still yet to make his stop, and we're coming down to the final 4 minutes. He will use all of that. And certainly given that the laps are settled around a 1:45, they could probably get another 2 laps in before coming into box anyway. Fabian Schiller, fastest again. He is just not quitting. He's not stopping. Purple in the first and second sectors on this lap after setting a fastest lap on the previous run as well. He is absolutely sending it. Gino Forgione is now in the pits as well. He's coming in to replace Montemini, Andrea Montemini, of course a legend here of this series, 2 times a champion in this title race as well, a former Formula 1 driver who tested for Benetton back in the day as well, back in 1994, and is now here taking part in this series in the AM classification. Great to have him here too.
On board with Ricard Leitz, who's fresh from the Le Mans 24-hour, racing alongside Michael Fassbender and filming the Road to Le Mans series, which has been very enjoyable, and we'll get another season of that soon. With Ricard Leitz in the meantime partnering Patrick Cole. Now we've got some action here. The race leader coming up onto some traffic. That was the AF Corsa coming out to the pits, and of course Giuseppe Cipriani right in front of him there, as Luca Engstler getting all over the grass trying to put a move on that car. I think that was for position actually, but Luca Engstler getting inventive there.
Yeah, I think he had to, I think, in that situation, and definitely managed to keep himself on track at the very least. It got very contentious between the pair heading through the first sector. Nevertheless, though, remains out on circuit and chasing after Martin Kodrick, not necessarily for position at this point, because obviously Kodrick's still yet to pit. So now we've seen the Vinaldi come together, and that's with the SPS Performance, that belonging to both Riespar and Mikael Pitamba. Of course, Riespar still out on track, still yet to pit, or as I say that, they've just made the change. Mikael Pitamba now steps into the car.
Yeah, that Vinaldi car, the sister car to the one we're looking at now, has kind of been in the wars a little bit in this race. Second incident of the day for them. We're back on board with the Porsche that's chasing after the Olin Audi that was being driven by Carol Bash.
Still is at this point as well, currently sat in 5th, and do have to wonder whether they've got some problems there with that car at the moment, but we'll have to keep our eyes peeled as in comes our race leader, Martin Kodrick, and Andrei Lewandowski is now going to be stepping in. Now, he is a former AM champion of this series as well here in the GT Open, so certainly no less credentials. He, of course, taken that AM title back in 2018, Andrei Lewandowski, and he now steps in as side of that of Martin Kodrick, who's put in a heroic stint.
It certainly has. I'm actually just wondering if actually Ricard Leitz was behind the Audi and tried to unlap itself, actually. But the Oregon Lamborghini's coming at a bit of an angle there. They're going to have to hopefully be able to rotate that, otherwise it's going to be a bit awkward trying to get out of the box. But suddenly, yes, as the pit window is coming to a close, the remaining runners all jumping into the pits now. So it's all on Lewandowski to bring home this Pro-Am win for the 32 Vinaldi crew. As Lewis Proctor then,
He very nearly...
had 2 attempts at getting into his pit box.
Very nearly venturing into the wrong pit box.
Yes.
So we're gonna be...
He wouldn't be the first McLaren driver to do that. So there's no shame in it. Now the other Kessel
Second time lucky,
296. Yes, absolutely. The other 296, number 38 here, being handed over to Nicola Rossi now. And now our pre-race leader back into the pits, and there we can see a change because that Benaldi car had, I think, a success penalty of 5 seconds, and it's been jumped by the 27. So Marco Pulcini now ahead, it looks to me.
I can tell you this as well, Diego Menchaca coming out into second as well. A brilliant stint to get things away from Marcos Sibert, has managed to give them an opportunity to chase after Pierre-Louis Chauvet. And now Fabian Schiller, with all his drive in the fastest laps as well, now started to come into position. We've got Pulcini coming out as well, Marco Pulcini, that is, folks, in third place. Andrei Lewandowski as well out and about as well. We can confirm the driver change window has come to an end. It's finito. We are now onwards on the final stint.
Okay, so 27 minutes or so remaining, and it is confirmation Pierre-Louis Chauvet has taken the net lead of the race by 1.4 seconds to Diego Menchaca. Marco Pulcini still third overall, holding the Pro-Am lead now, ahead of Andrei Lewandowski, who has got Fabian Schiller all over the back of him. So the Almenara racing crew still very much in contention for an overall podium here, provided they can keep the likes of Haase and Perolini at bay.
Yeah, absolutely right indeed. There you can see as well, obviously, the Lamborghini that led the entirety earlier on, obviously getting through the initial stint, is now the job of it to try and negate any potential losses here. But of course, they've got a very, very fast Fabian Schiller behind them. Andrei Lewandowski now is going to be under a lot of pressure, running wide around turn 14 as well. That won't help, but certainly a lick of the lips for Fabian Schiller, who now looks to make the big, bold move to send the Mercedes that has already won a race this season further up this classification. They've got a lot on their mind as they make their way through turn 1. Certainly, though, Fabian Schiller doing the utmost there, hugging the inside line. A brilliant move, a bold move, an expected move heading through turn 1, and a flash of the lights. He would have liked that one.
Yep, so that is for 4th place. Now he's just got Pulcini, the Pro-Am leader, between him and a spot on the podium, and it's not too far behind them for a spot further up as well. And of course, remember, our race leader is under investigation for their pit stop, so Diego Menchaca here could be sitting in the pound seat.
Yeah, could well be. Obviously, Pierre-Louis Chauvet, we alluded to that potential issue, obviously being investigated there by the stewards as well. Another flash of the lights from Fabian Schiller, just letting Marco Pulcini knows that he's coming as he makes his way through. Obviously is very much concerned about the top 3 fight. He's not majorly far away from Diego Menchaca, and not too far away from Pierre-Louis Chauvet as well, as there you can see the Motor Park GT3 make its way through in the Mercedes, heading down this next straight now before they venture into the next right-hander. Of course, they've got to tackle turn 12 before they then venture through turn 13. There again, a look down the inside, further down as well, Lewandowski under pressure as well in the Benaldi Lamborghini. And just look at this as well, the Line Speed GP trying to make places now, hugging through that outside. Obviously, we saw Ricard Leers and Patrick Cole working hard here in this car. They're doing it again, just basically trying to knife their way through this grid order.
Yeah, so right around the outside of Stuart Proctor there at turn 5, and that is the kind of move that Ricard Leeds is able to pull off when he's got the speed in hand. We know how talented he is. He's won all the major endurance races. As here comes Fabian Schiller now for a spot on the podium. Pulcini running out wide here, and that is an open invitation for the Mercedes-AMG factory driver to go through into 3rd place. Pulcini won't fight this one too hard. He knows it's not his fight.
No, he actually did back off. He did hold on to that inside. I think wasn't sure whether he was going to try and send it up, but no, not this time. He knows when or where his fights are. Here's the replay then. Tight inside line again. Fabian Schiller, very similar to the previous move he made, obviously, when he extracted the place of Andrei Lewandowski, and he's done exactly the same again this time, as we now take across to have another look at Lewandowski, who's got another battle on his hands.
Yeah, so this 25 is actually a lap down, I believe, and he's trying to unlap himself against the car that was leading this race for a long time with Martin Kodrick at the wheel, and he's now going to get that opportunity. Yeah, this is the AM car. Oh dear, and having to get elbows out there, very nearly making contact with Christopher Haas's Audi as well. They just survived going through there.
And that was for a place as well. Haas are actually managing to move up to 5th place off the back of that too. So coming together between that of Lewandowski and of course the car number 25 in the AF Corsa. Of course now Haas can pretty much enjoy a little bit of, well, I was going to say enjoy some clean air, but he's got Polcini dead ahead of him now.
Well, he will get blue flags for that, actually, because Haas is a lap ahead. But I doubt the 25 will yield to the Benaldi car that time.
No, not at all. Obviously, that 25 car belonging to that of Alessandro Cosi and Giorgio Giotto, and unfortunately coming unstuck in that situation. But nevertheless, watching the cars now make their way down through towards turn 1, and again Christopher Haas behind the wheel of this car, of course the East Talent Audi that of course pushed the Optimum Motorsport McLaren all the way to the finish at Spa-Francorchamps last time out. It's now in the prospects of perhaps achieving a little more, because bear in mind they're in this overall championship fight.
Yes, so of the championship contenders, obviously the motorpart number 17 that we're watching here, best placed in 2nd. Then the Christopher Haas Audi in 5th place there, whereas our championship leader, Charlie Fagg, currently in 8th, 1.7 seconds behind Pietro Perellini. But at Haas here, he's got just under 2 seconds to the next car, which is Polcini. That'll be for 4th place overall. And for the first time in a while, George, the lead gap is now under 1 second. Mancheka has been just chipping away at Pierre-Louis Chauvet's lead. Now, the team, I'm sure, will have told him that that car is under investigation, but while no penalty has been applied, he'll want to be ahead of it.
Yeah, I don't think you can rely on penalties at this stage. I mean, we've got team managers for car 17 to report to race control, and that's Mancheka as well. So, interesting, very interesting indeed. I tell you what, stay tuned, folks. We could be in for a fascinating final 21 minutes, 21 and a half minutes, in fact, as we now see them make their way through the final sector again. There is the East Talent Audi of Christopher Haas once again giving chase as they now make their way through this next right, obviously chasing after Marco Polcini, who's obviously also lost out a place already to that of Fabian Schiller earlier on, so certainly Haas are trying to follow in the footsteps as then they make their way down through towards turn 1. And there is, of course, the 27 AF Corsa in the mix. Now they run off wide. That is the 25 AF Corsa. That, of course, being driven, I believe, by Sergio Giotto as well, as they make their way down through towards turn 2 and very shortly towards turn 3 as well. And you can just see there a flash of the lights from Haas saying, listen, I'm trying to overtake. This is back marker scenarios coming out now, very tight, still not giving the position here, and that might prove to be an issue for Haas as they head now up the hill towards turn 4. Is he going to get through? Surely this time he's going to get through, makes his way through. Yes,
there
he
does.
Go.
Yes, so Sonny Kelso finally got the message. This is not for position. The Audi is ahead of you on track in terms of the laps. So stop getting in the way a little bit there, because the battle for position is the one ahead of him. It's the 27 of Polcini in front of him, but yeah, Haas having to take real avoiding action there in turn 2, all over the concrete curbing on the inside of that corner, and he's attacking the rest of the curbs around the lap as well.
Yeah, 2A, of course, is currently sat in different parts of the classification. Obviously, now the A, of course, that Haas is worried about is Polcini ahead of him. Obviously, has lost out a little bit of time, and there is Giuseppe Cipriani, who has run off very wide indeed, heading through turn 1. And we're right on board now with Charlie Fagg, who now makes his way through this next right, and that is an Oregon car, a little twitch as well for number 19, Pietro Pirellini, and they come together, and on the outside, looks like Fagg had him on this occasion.
Yeah, so that's for 7th place. We've got yellow flags out at turn 2 for some reason. We haven't seen yet. Lead gap, meanwhile, has come down to just half a second, so definitely closing up there. Green flags now waving at turn 2. Here's the move from Christopher Haas for 4th place overall. Again, it's a pro car against a pro-am car. Polcini not putting up much of a fight. Maybe he'll try to steal a little bit of a slipstream down towards turn 2 while he can, but his main fight is with Lewandowski, who he's pulling away from, actually, the gap around 4 seconds now. And then the 3rd car in Pro-Am, isn't until you get to 10th place overall. That's Steve Jans in the 911 Get Speed Mercedes.
Yeah, Steve Jans now in the top 10 as well. Haas managing to move his way up into 4th place. Now we're seeing certainly 2 cars come together as well. This, of course, being that of Marco Polcini, who's currently in the mix of all this, is now the 2A, of course, has come together. That's the 25 car, obviously that belonging to that of Sergio Giotto, who's currently behind the wheel of that. And he's trying to gain and essentially unlap himself, I think, at this point as he makes his way through this this point on circuit. Further up at the sharp end, though, Diego Menchaca getting himself closer and closer to Pierre-Louis Chauvet. The gap was at 410, just gone out a little bit slightly as we made our way through the sectors, and there's a very slow Mirage Motorsport car. Where's it going?
Looks like it's got a problem there. It's having to park up here at turn 2. And that looks like the end of their day, unfortunately. Yep, comes to a stop. Now, that's that could well be... That will definitely be yellow flags at turn 2, but we should be able to get away without safety car intervention. Still haven't seen why we had yellows at turn 2 a few minutes ago, actually, as Luke Engsler has been told to give a position back to, I didn't see what car it was, George, there, but he's in 15th overall.
Yeah, I mean, it could either be Mikhail Pitan. We got news. Oh!
18-second time penalty for the second place car of Diego Menchaca, not serving the handicap correctly. Now, 17, that had a 10-second additional handicap, which means this battle for the lead that we're now watching, because they're now nose to tail, is not for the lead at all. But remember, the race leader is also under investigation for their pit stop. So it's suddenly Fabian Schiller and Alfa Zubair the ones to look out for the win. But I mean, this battle is for position for now, and I'm sure Menchaca's going to get the hammer down to try and increase his advantage as much as possible to minimise that stop. But right now, that would put him in 6th place, that penalty.
Yeah, it certainly is devastating for the Team Motor Park, and obviously off the back of a successful run at Portimao, and obviously doing well to achieve 3 podiums in 3 races, it looks like there won't be a 4th podium if this should carry on, obviously subject to the gap that he's able to pull off come the end of the race. But we have got to watch this battle for the lead, because obviously the on-track lead here, as we take a look at the Mirage Motorsport car, of course, Libo Malotta out of the car now, and obviously I'd imagine very disappointed to be here at their home race and unable to bring the car home. But nevertheless, here we are, rejoining the battle at the front end. Pierre-Louis Chauvet, who has held on to that lead ever since stepping in. Menchaca in behind as well. Obviously, Fabian Schiller is on an absolute rise after putting in stellar fastest lap. Zubair, a little hesitation now that might open the door here for the Almana Racing Get Speed Mercedes in behind. Chauvet able to hold on to the advantage despite Menchaca's mistake, and Schiller unable to make the move.
So 15 minutes to go, less than 1 second covers the top 3. Fabian Schiller needs to dispatch of Diego Menchaca as quick as possible. He knows that car is a penalty. The 63 leading car is under investigation, but Fabian Schiller's got to assume that no penalty is going to be applied. You can't take that risk. So Schiller's got to get ahead of Menchaca and just get him out the way, quick as possible.
Yeah, it's the difference maker here, because obviously Schiller, while Menchaca has got the penalty, obviously he might not be aware of that unless his team radio have let him know. But also at the same time, however, he is a barrier between himself and P1 of Pierre-Louis Chauvet as well. But Chauvet putting on a stellar drive so far. His stint certainly is going to be the decisive one. Is he going to suffer a penalty himself, given what happened during their pit stop phase that's being investigated? We'll have to wait and see. There is, of course, the Benaldi car now being tracked by Charlie Fagg, who is also looking to try and raise a couple of places himself as well. Lewandowski currently holding on to 2nd in Pro-Am, and also holding on to 6th in this classification. Charlie Fagg looking ever so good, heading through that particular sector, is following every move he makes, awaiting any open door possible here at this point now, as they now work their way through this next straight. They've got only a handful of corners left on this particular lap, and now as they cruise down through towards the next right out of turn 12, opening the door there indeed for Benaldi, and now Charlie Fagg will make his move, make the charge, and does sustain it as well. 6th place now for Charlie Fagg. Opportunistic, brilliantly done.
For the lead once again, only 0.8 of a second covering these 3 cars, and well, one of them's got a penalty, one of them's under investigation, the other one's got a clean run, and that being the car third in this queue. And Mancheka's not giving up the chase here despite his penalty, because he knows if he can get past Pierre-Louis Chauvet here, then he can open up a gap and try and minimize the effects of that penalty. But Pierre-Louis Chauvet absolutely soaking up this pressure at the moment as they head up through turns 4 and 5 now, and this is Pierre-Louis Chauvet, who's still early in his GT racing career, of course, one of those drivers who's made the switch from single-seaters. He was doing French F4 a few years ago, did a bit of Euroformula Open in 2019 as well, was a race winner in Formula Regional European Series as well, and then last year started dipping his toes into the world of GT racing with Lamborghini Super Trofeo and the GT4 European Series, this being his first year in a full-fledged GT3 car. And here he is in his third round, finding himself fighting for the lead against much more experienced drivers, including a Mercedes-AMG factory driver at the back of this queue.
Yeah, and certainly this will mean so much to Team Oregon, who we've alluded to it time and time again, haven't had the season start that they could have hoped for, obviously off the back of last season, but still nonetheless, we have got the cars making their way through the next straight. Last warning being delivered to Pierre-Louis Chauvet for track limits.
Just to add another...
I mean, the story just keeps on coming, doesn't it? The storybook finish. Here we see Charlie Fag. Now, this was the move that we saw earlier on that would gain him that 6th place off Andrea Lewandowski, and that has certainly helped them rise up the order. But once again, you just see these front three, once again, tussling. Menchaka a little bit wide. You could argue that slightly, losing a bit of ground to Chauvet up at the front end, and this opens the door potentially for Fabian Schiller, who has got to try and take his chance. With 12 minutes to go here, you feel the tension starting to get a little bit tight here, Chris.
Absolutely, yeah, I'm absolutely certain that in these remaining 12 minutes, they will not cross the line in this order, most likely. Still less than a second covers these three cars. Absolutely brilliant racing here in the International GT Open. Once again, it does not disappoint. And everyone's saying, oh, you can't overtake on this track. It's going to be just follow the leader. But we're still getting an absolutely fantastic race out of it. They are still 6.6 seconds ahead of Christopher Haase, and although Haase is lapping a little bit faster at the moment, it's only by a few tenths of a second, so long as they keep things neat and tidy, they should be able to repel Haase's advances for now. And then we've got about 10 seconds back to Polcini, the Pro-Am leader. So this is it for the lead now, and lots of pressure. Whoa, Charlie Fag getting very close to the Ferrari ahead of him. That would be Marco Polcini going into this middle sector here, very close at turn 8 for a moment there. We jumped on board right at the right time there, but I imagine Charlie Fag here will line up a move on Polcini for what will be 5th place overall. And we've been talking about the Pro-Am runners, you know, it's not their fight against the pro cars. He tries to get up the inside here, but for the pro runners, their points are based off their overall position. They don't get pro position points, it's all based on the overall, unlike the Pro-Am and the Am classes. So even moves like this on cars that are not in his class are going to make a difference to his championship, and that's of course being the championship leader going into this race. Don't know how much longer that will last with his rivals higher up the order, but Charlie Fag here with a great tow from the Ferrari down the straight and up the inside into turn 1, textbook maneuver into 5th place.
Yeah, superb move there from Charlie Fag, a necessary one as well. Need to maximise as many points as they can. I spoke to Rob McCornick, of course, the man who's part of the team behind that of Optima Motorsport, the boss essentially of this wonderful squad that they have here this weekend, and he said to me that if they can get 4th place, it would mean a lot. They've got themselves one step closer, obviously at this point, 5th on the table. They have a lot of work to do to close up to Christopher Haase. It doesn't look like they'll be able to achieve that, but still vital points nonetheless, Chris.
Yeah, the McLaren's just not been working on this track, and I think that's kind of historic as well, really. So this is a damage limitation round, it would seem. Back to the race lead, less than 10 minutes on the clock now. What's going to give first? I mean, between these three, surely Schiller's fancying a run here on Manchaka. Surely the team have told him that Manchaka's got a penalty, so if you want to go, you know, for the lead, you've got to get past him sharpish. And Chauvet is just absolutely soaking up this pressure, doing an absolutely remarkable job for the 23-year-old from Dresden in Germany.
Yeah, it certainly is. And yeah, you can see as well, Diego Menchaca just in behind, getting himself teed up as well. They make their way down the straight, and Pierre-Louis Chauvet once again needs to put on another defensive masterclass. We saw, of course, Dan Arrow, fellow driver at Oregon as well, defending to the hilt, of course, earlier on. Fabian Schiller in behind, who's been putting in ridiculous amounts of fastest laps. But look at this now. Huge chance now for Menchaca as they run side by side out of turn 1. Turn 2 to come next. Has he done enough, or has Chauvet got enough of car down the inside to protect the position? Look at Schiller. Schiller down the inside as well. It's a three-way fight. Can he find it through turn 3?
Oh, he's lost it.
My goodness me. Off he goes, Diego Menchaca. Menchaca is off. Sensational. Again, to add to the penalty they've received, they've now spun. They've dropped down the order now, and certainly at this point, Haas are now into 3rd, and now Chauvet has Schiller to deal with.
And yeah, so open door now for Schiller. Chauvet was fighting it really, really hard, despite Menchaca having a penalty there. Just let him through, really, and let him do his own thing. But here it is again. So he was trying to go around the outside. He runs really, really wide, as does Chauvet, actually. And Schiller almost gets both of them here in one maneuver. And look at that, too much weight on the front end. Lost the back immediately into turn 3. Yellow flags come out, and that is a disastrous moment for the car that is 2nd in the championship. And not only has it lost its podium position, but it's got to take another 18 seconds of penalty to come as well. And Chauvet, now the Frenchman, sorry, not the German, as I said earlier, has got a Mercedes-AMG factory driver bearing down on him. 7.5 minutes left on the clock. Surely this is going to be Schiller's. I can't think how he's going to keep Schiller behind him. He's been so fast all day.
Yeah, you got to give credits as well to Fabian Schiller and, of course, his teammate Alphonse Zuber. Door wide open here. Oregon, have they left too much window? I think they might have. They make their way out to turn 1, and Schiller, who has been absolutely brilliant ever since his stint has started, fastest lap after fastest lap to negate the 15-second handicap. A switch back heading out of turn 2 now as they cruise up towards turn 3. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's sensational. Sensational Schiller here at Hungaroring. He leads here at Budapest.
Unbelievable. So Chauvet made the same mistake at turn 1 again. He left the door just a tad open, enough for Schiller to get up on the inside there. Got the run into the second corner as well. Wonderful switchback as well. I mean, it took a few corners to play out, but brilliant stuff from Fabian Schiller. And that's why you pay for the factory drivers, because they pull out moves like that. But absolutely no discredit to Pierre-Louis Chauvet as well. He's done such a stellar job. And meanwhile, now another investigation now for that car, though. Refueling with the engine on, which is strictly prohibited, as we see the change for the lead once again, this time from the Drocam. Just absolutely brilliant from Fabian Schiller. But yeah, there's a number of investigations going on for what is now the 2nd place car.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Osaka suffering the same thing as well as they look to dispatch some of the back markers here at this point. Now you can see the Greystone GT McLaren as well in the midst of all this, making its way through this next right-hander. What a stellar race. What a performance from Fabian Schiller. We talk about it, folks, how important the handicap system is. It played a massive factor towards the tail end of last season. It didn't stop Oregon last time out, and it certainly hasn't stopped Fabian Schiller here in this race. A stellar drive where they had to deliver fastest lap after fastest lap, and they've done exactly that. And there is Christopher Haas off the back of Menchaca losing it earlier on after that scrap he had between Chauvet and Schiller, coming undone under turn 3 conditions, and certainly spinning the rear end allowed Haas through into the top 3, and I'm sure he'll enjoy this one.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to that moment, doesn't it, when Menchaca dropped it from 3rd place, and that just unleashed Schiller. And could well have played out very differently if Menchaca had been able to hold on to that spot. And provisionally, it would still fall down to, I think, 6th or 7th at the moment with where he is. So that spin's not actually, in reality, cost him all that much, but it has certainly unleashed Fabian Schiller.
Yeah, absolutely right indeed. Schiller currently on top, 1.3 seconds between him and Chauvet. Haas now in third and ahead of Menchaca off the back of that incident. And now, as we see the cars make their way through the F courses as well, coming together. That, of course, being the 51 of Riccardo Agostini, who stepped in aside of Nicola Marinangeli. They're all coming together. And there is Serna Giotto as well in behind, in car number 25. He's got a conglomerate in behind him as well. And heading through this next left-hander coming together. But still, nothing undeterring. We got the battle for fifth, though, lighting up. Polcini currently in the midst of all this. Agostini, we saw him as well in the midst of this too. Agostini now currently sat in 6th place in the Pro Cap. And look at this, an incredible moment, certainly. Of course, this was the car that was leading the race earlier on. And how about as well the other Mercedes, this time belonging to that of 911. Steve Jans trying to fight his way through of all this, certainly this tussle of cars. Andrei Lewandowski being usurped here by Steve Jans. Outside line now out of turn 14 as he now looks to try and challenge that of Polcini. They come together now down the straight. Jans now with a chance here. A flash of the lights. He might serve it up on a plate.
Yeah, so this is all for second in the Pro-Am order. They've got this 25 Am car in the way of them. That is a back marker. It's not for position, but it was certainly getting very close between the top 3 in Pro-Am at one point there. But Steve Jans now up into 2nd place in that class, as they're still battling to try and get ahead of this 25A, of course, the Ferrari. It's been a real thorn in the side of some of these drivers today.
Yeah, absolutely has indeed. And obviously now Lewandowski is going to have to try and deal with that himself now. But look who's behind as well, Pietro Pirolini, who's currently in the top 10. He's going to look to try and maximise his points, because what happens overall is certainly going to matter to Pirolini. So he needs to try and get himself ahead now of Lewandowski. Steve Jans might be a trickier job, because of course he's chasing after Marco Polcini and does have that vital clean air, as we now see Christopher Haas, and he's caught up with Pierre-Louis Chauvet as well. We could yet have a dramatic final 2 minutes.
Yes, of course, Haas is now on the podium with Menchaca's problem earlier on. And now the 63 does have a number of investigations to its name, but Haas can still make the move out on track in the final 2 minutes. They come down the straight now, and he'll be getting a lovely tow from that Oregon Lamborghini. But obviously not close enough on this occasion to do something about it. And of course now Haas and Riker, East Talent Audi is the best place of our top 3 in the championship, and could well find themselves leaving here today with the championship lead. I'd have to do quite quick mental arithmetic on that, but it could well still be the Motorpark crew.
Yeah, they're making their way through now. Chauvet is currently sat in 2nd, Haas in 3rd, Menchaca, who's still in 4th, and Fag there in 5th as well. But Schiller currently delivering a clinic, 4 seconds now ahead now of Chauvet, but Chauvet's got bigger problems because Haas now starting to make his life a little difficult. And of course Haas knows all about battles at the very last minute. Of course did exactly the same to Charlie Fag and Sam DeHaan last time out when they went racing at Spa, when of course they went right down to the wire between the pair of them, exactly. And as you said back then, Chris, this is what GT racing is all about, and certainly this is what it's all about. 40 seconds to go in terms of the time left. Schiller still leads, but this battle for P2 is fascinating, as now Chauvet defends to the inside again. Haas unable to unlock the door, but you do fathom there might be a chance though heading through turn 1.
Could well be. We're coming up to the last few seconds left on the clock. So Fabian Schiller is in the 2nd sector now, so we haven't had the last lap board just yet. I imagine we'll get it next time around. So Christopher Haas running out of opportunities to take 2nd place away from Pierre-Louis Chauvet there. And yes, car number 63 has got a 5-second time penalty now, but for abusing track limits. So we saw that car was on its final warning. There are still other investigations to be taken to that car. So Chauvet is in essence not in 2nd place, and I'm sure the team will get straight on to Christopher Haas and say, you don't need to pass him on track. He's got a 5-second penalty, just follow him home for these last couple of laps. But I'm not sure Haas knows any other way, as he lit up the rear tyres through turn 2, chasing after that Lamborghini.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I'd imagine he would nothing feels quite like overtaking your competitor out on circuit. Certainly here at Hungaroring, Chauvet has put up a tenacious fight, but 5 seconds to be added to his time at the end of the race was certainly deter him from P2, but certainly a podium could yet be on the cards. Certainly Menchaca, who's got a bigger penalty to deal with at the very end as they come together still, heading through this next left and right again. There you can see them still, nose to tail, the gap thinner than a fly's eyelash now as Haase makes his way through this next left-hander. Of course, Schiller now, who has put on a clinic, a sensational display. Of course, we celebrated their big result last time out when we went racing, certainly at our last race at Portimao, where we saw them last in this championship, making his way through turn 13. Fabian Schiller, who put together a dynamic stint off the back of an Alphys Al-Zubair clinic himself, undeterred by that 15-second handicap that they had to serve during the driver change phase. Fabian Schiller will round the final corner, take the checkered flag, and victory again, this time at Hungaroring. Chauvet will come across on track in P2. Haase, though, will take it himself, though, after the 5-second penalty that was added to Menchaca, to Chauvet's time. Menchaca, in fact, though, taking third place as a result of that penalty. But what a race, what a result for Fabian Schiller.
Yeah, well, of course, Menchaca's penalty to be applied as well, so that might actually give Chauvet a little bit of reprieve. Yes, it does indeed. So he's back up on the podium. Charlie Fagg in 4th place. Otsman will be very happy with that. That was their target for this weekend. And Marco Polcini across the line to take the Pro-Am honours for AF Corse Ferrari alongside Eddie Cheever III, and Heiko Neumann and Timo Rumpfkeil are taking the AM honours in 11th place overall.
Yeah, tremendous race from Fabian Schiller. Christopher Haase gave it everything as well, a grand recovery, and certainly move his way up the order, benefiting off the back of the incidents in place by the likes of Pierre-Louis Chauvet and Diego Menchaca. Charlie Fagg, though, the objective set in place by Rob McCornage was indeed 4th place. They've only gone and done and achieved it here, Chris. So
absolutely. Fair
play. I would say that's a good day at the office for them.
Damage limitation for them, for sure. And so they're ahead of their nearest rivals in the championship, Team Motorpark. Lost out a little bit to the East Talent Audi, but certainly a good result. And far more woes for the Oregon team here as Pietro Perolini in number 19, 5-second time penalty to be taken as well. And he has classified 12th. Provisionally as well. So once again, we're seeing those cars being fast, but not keeping it entirely clean, unfortunately.
No, it was a very, very hefty scrap between many of them. I mean, we did witness quite a lot of battling heading through, but Fabian Schiller celebrating with the lights blinking and celebrations down at Almanor Racing. Get speed, certainly get speedy, this time at Hungaroring, and Fabian Schiller will be thrilled. Here are the confirmed results here at this point, folks. Alphys Al-Zubair and Fabian Schiller, they are your winners for Almanor Racing by Get Speed. Simon Riker and Christopher Haase in 2nd, with Pierre-Louis Chauvet and Maximilian Paul in 3rd. Charlie Fagg and Sam Dahan finishing a great 4th, and certainly Diego Menchaca, Marco Seibert, what could have been despite the penalty and the spin as well, they remain in 5th. Looking further down the order as well, Riccardo Agostini, Marco Polcini, Jans, as well as Lewandowski in 9th, Heiko Neumann in 10th as well for them, and they also take the AM win as well. Coando and Exler in 11th, Pirolini and Arrow in 12th, Reese Barr and Mikael Pitamba in 13th, with Jadlinski and Bash in 14th, Rosie and Shiro in 15th as well. Further down, Richard Lietz coming home in 16th, with Giuseppe Cipriani in 17th, Milos Pavlovic in 16th, Yannick Mettler and Dexter Muller home in 19th, with Amo Seika in 20th, Martin Conrad, Conrad Grunwald, I should say, in 21st, with Omar Jackson in 22nd, Gino Forgione in 23rd, Lauren DeMeus in 24th, Ernest Kirkmeyer 25th. Championship looks a little like this. Charlie Fagg still holding on to the lead alongside Samuel Dahan. They, of course, now with a 4 points gap to that of Christopher Haase and Simon Riker after their superb result today as well. Diego Menchaca and Marco Seibert further back in the title race too, but certainly the race winners today will be pleased. They have come here, 3 races to the book now in the GTOpen. They've won 2 of them.
Yeah, certainly 66% success rate, 100% success rate in terms of podiums as well, because they were 2nd in the second race in Portimao as well, and they've certainly been a very formidable pairing in the 3 races they've done so far. Of course, another round to come tomorrow, and It's amazing, even though they missed the Spa Enduro, not actually that far behind in the championship, such has been their success, but they are only doing one more round, I believe, after this one, so they're definitely not in the championship hunt, unfortunately, because I think they would have made things very interesting indeed if we had a fourth car involved in that, but still very close between our top three.
Yeah, it certainly was. Pierre-Louis Chauvert coming home in third alongside teammate Maximilian Paul. They weren't able to carry the car home right towards the end, but certainly I'd imagine that Pier Giorgio Testa and Jerry Canavisio will be pleased to take a podium. Simon Riker and Christopher Haase in second for East Talent Audi. That gallant response certainly arising here at this point during the race. They would be pleased with that. But your eventual winners, taking 2 wins this season, Alfonso Lazoubert and Fabian Schiller, and they will be standing by with none other than Alfredo Filipponi. Interview coming very shortly, folks, and stand by. And we will be bringing you that shortly after a tremendous win.
Lazoubert and Fabian Schiller. Okay, every time you come to the GTOpen, you get some satisfaction, Alfonso.
Yeah, it was a great race. Honestly, most credits to Fabi today. He was rapid and a few moves, a few close ones, and yeah, another win. Tomorrow will be tough with 20 seconds, but we'll see what we can do.
And of course, the final laps, big fight.
Yeah, definitely. It's been, especially today with our 15 seconds handicap at the pit stop. We dropped down the field a little bit after the pit stops, and yeah, it's been tough, but we had a strong car. We could make some good moves, and yeah, Almanar Racing and Get Speed, as always, a perfect job. It's great fun and a lovely track. We really enjoyed it. I think it suits our car very well also. And yeah, another day tomorrow, and we try go again.
Nothing more we can ask. Podium now. Well done, guys.
Thank you.
Well, a fantastic result. Let's take a look at the highlights of what can only be described as a fantastic race here at Hungaroring, getting underway as well when the lights went green. It was, of course, Martin Kodrick leading the way alongside that of Eddie Cheever, who was right side by side with him. They went down together. Obviously, Carol Bash was right behind them too. Opportunities there for the Audi as they made their way into turn one as well. The Oregon car also went hunting around the outside too in the early days. The other Oregon car also tried to take a piece of Moto Park's very own Marcos Seibert heading out of turn one. There was the incident as well, the line speed Porsche coming to cropper after a collision as well with that of Respar earlier on. Then, of course, we had the big smash earlier on too. We had not David Fuminelli, his teammate, incidentally, Yusei, who came a cropper heading through turn two and in towards turn three. There was a few cars involved in that eventual scrap. And then heading down in towards turn one, the Team Enxler car getting in the mix, but it was the collision between the Racing One Ferrari and SPS Performance Mercedes, of course, being driven by Dexter Muller, that would lead to a collision and a spin as well for Muller, as well as the Racing One Ferrari too. In came, though, Martin Kodrick to finish his stint. It was a very successful stint too, following up a perfect response to the qualifying session they had this morning. Eventually stepping into the car would be Lewandowski, who would eventually get overtaken by our eventual race winner, that would be Fabian Schiller, who made a very nice comprehensive overtake heading through turn one. He then had to gain on the back of that of Diego Menchaca, as well as Pierre-Louis Chauvert as well, but certainly making move after move. It did not deter that of Fabian Schiller, who gave it absolutely everything, stringing together fastest lap after fastest lap, overtake after overtake to lift himself through the order, despite the eventual circumstantial penalty. But certainly off the track, Diego Menchaca, after a spin at turn three, it then opened the door for Fabian Schiller to challenge that of Pierre-Louis Chauvert late into the race, only then to round the final corner and then take the eventual victory for Almanar Racing and Get Speed Performance. And now we have the podium celebrations. That, of course, that the many drivers that will be celebrating up at the top end. Of course, your overall winners being that of Fabian Schiller and Christopher Haase. Celebrations from the team as well. A stellar drive by both of their drivers. Credit as well to Christopher Haase, Pierre-Louis Chauvert as well. Oregon will take the positives out of this performance, Chris, as we now hear the national anthem.
For the third place driver.
Well, there we have it, and there are your podium sitters, and obviously the national anthem being played in response to that of Fabian Schiller and that of Al-Faisal Al-Zubair after another tremendous win. Trophies going to third place as well, that of course being Pierre-Louis Chauvert and his teammate as well. The Oregon team who have worked tremendously hard to try and put this together this weekend, and they have improved. Maximilian Pauls are becoming part of that. Not to mention Christopher Haase and Simon Riker. I think they'll be thrilled with that too, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly where they were on the grid as well. And for Oregon, it's first podium of the season as well. And getting their season back underway, of course, it's been very difficult start to the year for them. A far cry away from what they were doing last year, where they were in victory contention every single round. And, of course, winning both the teams and the drivers' championship. So it's been, yeah, it's a bit of a fall from grace for Oregon, but things looking much more positive now as Al-Faisal Al-Zubair in a bit of a hurry to get away from the podium for some reason.
Because he knows what's coming, Chris. That's why Champagne is next.
Yeah,
you know,
so
we've got a few sensitive drivers in this series that don't like to get wet, even though they're probably soaking.
I think it's usually because they've only got one race suit with them and they don't want it to smell for the next day. Yeah, but he's out of there straight away.
They're
all out of there.
Oh, it's 2 on 1. It's 2 on 1. It's not fair. Oh, dear. But no, there we go. Christopher Haase and Simon Riker staying up there with Fabian Schiller. Obviously, an incredible race to be said. I mean, they say you can't overtake at Hungaroring, but I think we've proven different here in this race.
Absolutely, yes. Trust GT3 machinery to prove all the naysayers wrong on a circuit like this, as the Pro-Am runners coming out as well. That was settled by only 0.2 of a second in the end there between Porcini and Jans.
Yeah, it certainly was, but a tremendous race to say the least, folks at home. I hope you all enjoyed it. Nevertheless, it was a tremendous race. We've got more coming tomorrow, so don't go away. Tomorrow morning qualifying and then race 2 in the afternoon. We'll see you then.